Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. And today I'm giving my review of the latest indie experimental horror film. I think you can probably describe it in those terms. Stopmotion. So this is a film that wasn't really on my radar until probably a couple of weeks ago. I did a video at the beginning of the year listing all of the horror films that I was looking forward to in 2024. And this one did not pop up in my search of upcoming horror films for the year. I really only found out about it through like the horror blogs, the websites, on social media, them posting the images of the stop motion animation, which looked really cool. I was really into the design. I loved how grotesque a lot of the creatures looked. I didn't watch any trailers for it, so I was under the impression that it was like a full-length stop-motion horror film. Something in the vein of Mad God, which I think came out, what was it, last year or 2022? It is not that. But it's also not really the film that they're marketing it to be either. This is a film that is being released by IFC and Shudder, and it will be on the Shudder platform at some point, I'm gonna guess in the next few weeks. They're giving it a small theatrical window right now. And if you've seen the trailers for it, you'll know that they're promoting this film as a film about a stop-motion animator whose designs eventually take a life on their own and begin walking around and essentially haunting her. The trailers are kind of giving something like, I don't know, Puppet Master, in which you have these little dolls that are just coming alive and are terrorizing the humans. But the film is not really that. You do have the stop-motion dolls that come alive, and there's a few scenes where you see them walking around, but they don't actually have much interaction with the human characters. You have a lot of sequences with the stop motion animation, and many of these sequences are, I think, an attempt to reflect the main character's mental state. So you have those scenes sprinkled throughout the film, and then the majority of it is really just the human relationships and the human drama. And unfortunately, the stuff with the humans is not good. It's not good. It's a lot of cliched writing. It's a lot of relying on just the same tropes that we've seen over and over again. I'm gonna try to keep this spoiler free because I know that not a lot of people have seen it yet. So without giving too much away, this is a film about a stop motion artist. You find out at the beginning of the film that she is actually the daughter of a very famous animator or stop motion artist. At least that's what I get from like the 2 lines of exposition that people talk about the mom of, like, oh, she was like this great creator, she was one of the best. We don't actually get to see her work. We don't actually see any of the accolades. We don't really understand her legacy as an animator. We're just meant to understand through dialogue that she was a really important person. So the film starts out with the protagonist helping her mom, and you can tell like it's not a great relationship. The mom seems very overbearing. The mom is also suffering from arthritis in her hands, so she can't actually make and move the dolls anymore as she used to be able to. So the daughter has to take on that role. So it's like one of those things where the mom is always like hovering, literally hovering over her shoulder and telling her like, okay, do this, do that. It's not presented as a healthy relationship from the start. You also have the thing where the daughter's like, I have a few ideas, and the mom's like, oh, do you? Tell me. And then she like freezes up and like can't tell her mom her ideas because I guess she's like so freaked out. And then, minor spoiler, but like it happens literally within the first 5 minutes. The mom has a stroke and ends up going into the hospital. And so then the daughter kind of takes over the film for herself, and that's how we get into the whole plot of the rest of the movie. Now, my biggest problem with this film is that I felt like all of the characters, but definitely the protagonist, were just not well written. All of it is done pretty much through exposition dialogue, which is just really annoying. And it's also not clear to me why the daughter decides to take on her mom's film by herself once mom is in the hospital. She doesn't really seem to care when her mom has a stroke and goes into the hospital. If anything, she seems kind of relieved that she doesn't have to deal with her mom anymore. But then she's going on like this whole thing where she's telling like her boyfriend and other characters like, oh, I have to finish my mom's film. I have to finish it. And it's like, but why? And then there's also questions around like, why does the protagonist even want to to be an animator? Does she want to be an animator? Does she actually enjoy it? Does she have a genuine love for the art of stop motion? Is she only doing it because her mom has forced her to like it throughout her whole life? Like, they do set up a thread where the mom at one point tells her, like, you're the puppet in your own life, right? You just let everyone else pull the strings and you can't function without someone telling you what to do. And so I was like, okay, is it going to be a thing where her mom is in the hospital and then it's true, like she can't function without her mom or someone telling her what to do, so the only thing she can think of to do is to try to keep working on this film, but because her mom is not there to tell her what happens, like she just goes into a complete downward spiral? Like, I don't know. It's a film that's definitely setting up the idea that we're dealing with a protagonist that is having a lot of mental health issues, is essentially losing their mind and their understanding of reality. But the cause of that, like why that's happening, is never really clear to me, because she seems pretty psychotic from the very beginning, and then she just kind of keeps being psychotic through the rest of the movie. Like, I don't really know what the trigger was for her. Again, if it was the mom going in the hospital, that's not really set up well, because again, she doesn't really seem to care. And then honestly, like halfway through the film, there's like a certain point where they just kind of drop the mom storyline altogether. So that was really weird. Again, not really sure what it is about stop motion or animation that our protagonist really enjoys. What is the protagonist's name? Like, I don't even remember. Ella. Okay, Ella. I don't know if Ella likes animation. I mean, again, through dialogue, she says stuff like, yeah, I do it because I'm good at it. Like, okay, you're good at it, but is it like what you really want to do? Is it your passion? Again, is this a passion that other people have put on you? And so you're kind of struggling because this thing that you're trying to do and succeed at isn't actually the thing that you want to be doing. That could have been an interesting story. But yeah, I don't know. And then they try to throw in like this other conflict with her boyfriend's sister. So it's set up that she has this boyfriend, and the boyfriend's sister works at an animation company, or I think it's a marketing company. It's like a company that does commercials for big products, but all of their commercials are like animated. They do like stop motion animation, and Ella is kind of jealous of her, but also not really, because she doesn't want to be working in a corporate setting and doesn't find that like artistic. And she's running around the whole movie saying things like, I'm a filmmaker, I could never work at a corporation. But there is like a weird jealousy between the two of them. Like, it seems like even though Ella doesn't want to work at a corporation, she does want to have the ability to animate and make a lot of money off of it like the sister does. And then there's this whole drama they shoehorn in like the beginning of the third act, where you find out that the sister has actually stolen some of Ella's ideas and are trying to pass them off as her own to use in these commercials. And like, even that didn't make sense, because I was like, why would an ad agency that's working for supposedly these top big companies, like why would any company want a bunch of creepy ass dolls to use as promotional material for their products? Like, that didn't make any sense to me. And again, it was one of those things where it felt like they just kind of threw it in there to create some kind of drama. But again, it's like, you don't know anything about these people. You don't know anything really about Ella. You don't learn anything about the sister other than she steals ideas and she likes to take drugs to help her come up with ideas. Again, another bit of exposition. You have the boyfriend character who seems like he's trying to help Ella throughout everything. He's there for her when her mom goes in the hospital. He's like, hey, you can come stay with me in my apartment. I'll take care of you. He ends up helping her get a new apartment on her own that she can use as a studio to make these creepy little stop motion films. And even when she starts really going off the deep end, like going out and grabbing dead animals and skinning the dead animals to use as material for her dolls, like even then he's really supportive of her and like, yeah, cool babe, go make your films. And she just treats him like trash throughout most of the movie. By the end of the film, I felt more bad for him than I did for the protagonist. I really did not like Ella as a character throughout most of this movie. And again, I think it's because you're having these characters that are just having these very bland, very cliched motivations and conflicts that it feels like the film is just throwing in there to use as filler so that they can get to like the next cool scene with stop motion. Again, the stuff with the stop motion, like that's what's really shining here. It is very cool. It does look creepy. I'm sure it took a lot of time to make these animations. And so I give kudos for that. I wish the whole film had been in this style. I understand that it's very difficult to do and takes a lot of money. I believe a film like Mad God, like that took them, I think, what, like 10 years or something to make. So I understand why the whole film was not in stop motion. If you've seen the trailer, then you know there's also a little girl character that pops up at one point. She is living in the apartment building where Ella is making her films. At one point, the little girl shows up and she's very curious about Ella and what her work is. And Ella shows her the film that she's working on, which is, again, her mom's film. And the little girl is like, "This is boring, you should make a new film."
It's a bit boring.
And she starts telling Ella a story of what she thinks is a better film about this little girl that is lost in the woods, and then some angry, dangerous man is coming after her. Now, when the little girl first showed up, I thought she was extremely annoying. Sorry, she was just that annoying kid that shows up in these horror movies sometimes. And then when she starts like telling Ella the story and then Ella starts making it, I was like, oh no, she's gonna like come back and we're gonna have to deal with this kid throughout the whole movie. And yes, that's exactly what happens. Also, again, I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, you do learn eventually what's actually going on with this kid. I'm sure you could take a guess and you would probably be right as to what is really going on with the little girl in this movie. But anyway, she's there for the movie and she's the one that's like giving Ella the ideas for this new film for her to make. So it's told in parts throughout the whole narrative, and it becomes very clear at a certain point that this movie that Ella is making seems to be a reflection of some sort of trauma that happened to her in the past. Now, the film doesn't give you any clear answers. What you have is these sequences with the stop motion animation. The story is being played out in front of you as the little girl tells it, and you're kind of just meant to infer what is going on. But again, the filmmakers are not giving you any clear answers. So for me, what it seemed like was, yeah, some kind of trauma that happened to her, especially because at some point in the story, it is established that this creepy guy who they call the Ash Man, who's chasing this little girl in the forest. The little girl eventually finds like a cabin to hide out in. And the story is basically that the Ash Man comes 3 nights and like bangs on the door. And then like on the second night, he actually comes into the cabin and touches her. Like they make a big deal about that, about like the Ash Man coming inside and touching the girl. So I was like, okay, that feels like it's touching on, again, some sort of past trauma. Again, I don't know. The film's not giving you any answers. It's just kind of asking you to come up with your own ideas. But again, from the little that it did give, that's what I was assuming the stop motion film was about. And that was also the explanation as to why Ella is just kind of out of it for the whole movie. And that brings me to my next point of this film, which is it wants to be a very like artsy, kind of experimental movie. Again, kind of in the vein of something like Mad God. But again, you're having this weird mixture of just like the normal like human drama mixed in with the animation, mixed in with these kind of more experimental artistic moments. And again, it just doesn't feel like it's blending together to create like a cohesive theme or just overall like message. Okay, I'm gonna get into spoilers for like a brief second, not spoiling the ending or anything that happens. This is a scene that takes place, I think, in the second act. And honestly, it doesn't really spoil anything because I don't know what the connection between this scene that I'm going to talk about and the rest of the movie is. But I think it's a good example of what I'm talking about and why there were certain parts of this film that just did not work for me. So you have this scene where Ella decides that she wants to go to a party that her boyfriend and her boyfriend's sister is hosting. And she wants to go because she's having a creative block and she thinks that the sister can give her drugs to help her spark some kind of creativity. So she goes to this party, doesn't even really say hi to her boyfriend, just shows up and is like, I need the drugs. She presumably takes the drugs, and then we have like a whole sequence at this party where she's just like walking around and she's all like tripped out, and you have the thing where you have like all these like flashing lights, like red and blues and purples. It's like a strobe light effect, right? And it's making her and everything in the party look very like distorted, and I guess it's supposed to be like like, ooh, look, we're being artsy. She walks into a room, and on the wall of one of the rooms, they're playing like this random puppet video. They show it in the trailer. This guy right here. This puppet is not like a full character in the movie. All you see of him is this projection on the wall that they're playing at this party for some reason. And so she kind of goes and like stares at it, and the puppet is, you know, saying weird things. And then you have other people around at the party, and they're just like standing there drugged out and looking weird. And then there's another scene where like a guy hits another guy over the head with a beer bottle, and he starts like bleeding, and then she just kind of comes over and is like touching his wound and like playing with the blood. I don't know. So you're having this sequence of like all these different things that are being edited together in this super like weird kind of fast, meant to feel like a drug-induced sequence. But it's like, I don't know what any of that imagery has to do with the rest of the film. I don't know what any of that has to do about her character. I don't know what it says about her character. Like, okay, you watched a creepy puppet on a wall and then made out with your boyfriend and then touched some guy's blood. And it just felt like they wanted to have a bunch of like weird, experimental, artsy imagery, but none of it has like any substance, it feels like. It doesn't feel like there's anything underneath it or any real purpose behind it other than let's be weird and cool. It felt very film school, honestly. And I say that as someone that went to film school, teaches at a film school. Like, it just gave that vibe. And sure, you can make the argument with like other experimental films that, you know, well, none of the imagery like makes sense or has any purpose to it. Another experimental horror film that could be an example of that could be something like Skinamarink from last year. Now, I really enjoyed Skinamarink. I liked Skinamarink a lot, but I know that there's people out there that are like, that film was a waste of time. That's kind of the critique and the argument that you often get with experimental imagery or experimental films. But at least what I'll say about Skinamarink is, even if you didn't enjoy it, it at least was a film that knew what it was. It had a style and it stuck with that style throughout the entire film. It fully went into and embraced the experimental genre. Whereas here with something like stop motion, again, it just feels like these weird parts where they're like, okay, we want to show that our character is having like weird psychological things, so here's a sequence of weird imagery. But then again, they try to go back to making it like a normal film with like normal human drama, right? The whole thing with like the sister and her stealing the art, and the drama with the boyfriend. Again, it just doesn't mesh well. So it was moments like that party sequence that I just described, that just felt like it slowed the film down. And as far as things like gore goes, it's not a very gory movie. There's a few scenes here and there. There's like one kind of cool kill with like a camera tripod. If you're not into like the artsy kind of experimental horror, I don't think this is for you. I mean, I love artsy experimental horror films, and I did not like this. So I would say if you're interested in it, definitely wait until it comes on Shudder. And then I would say like give it 20 minutes. If it's not working for you, then I'd probably say turn it off, because again, it's not like it's going to get any better after that. It keeps a pretty consistent tone throughout. And again, like, this is a film that's not going to give you any answers. So if you're someone that does not like those type of movies, you might want to watch something else. So yeah, I was pretty disappointed with this film. I mean, I know it got a lot of great buzz coming out of some of the horror film festivals, so I don't know, maybe it's a film that others will really like. I've definitely had a track record the past couple years of not really being that into other horror films that people seem to really love. I feel like this film might have worked better had it been like more contained. Had it been a story in which you have this artist and she's like trying to work and trying to like finish this film, and she's just kind of like losing her mind. I mean, I know we've seen that story too, but because so much of the stop motion is very psychological, it felt like the rest of the film needed to be a bit more contained. When it first started, I thought it was going to be a story about the mom and her daughter and them being these two artists and trying to make this film and just kind of driving each other crazy. And I thought that was really interesting. I was like, okay, cool, I'm into this. They could have even done something like that with her and having the little girl around, and you're not quite sure what their relationship is, but then as the film goes on, you discover what's happening. But I don't know, it just felt like it needed to be a more internal film, like kind of a film that takes place only in like one location and things just kind of get worse as the story progresses. I don't know if you could have done that for 90 minutes, but that's what I felt like it needed to be, because when it does go outside, when it does try to bring the character outside and connecting with other people, that's when you're getting a lot of these filler scenes where it's like just weird stuff with the boyfriend or drama with the sister, and then none of it really goes anywhere. So yeah, not a fan of this one. I will say I am excited because before the film, when they were doing all of the previews, they did show a trailer for a film that's coming out on Shudder later this year called Late Night with the Devil. I saw this film at South by Southwest last year and I loved it so much. I'm so excited for this film to come out. I think it's coming out in the fall. But that's a film that is coming out and I was so excited to see it, and I can't wait to watch that movie again. So that is one on the horizon to keep your eyes out for and be excited about. So those are my general thoughts on stop motion. Again, disappointment for me, but maybe other people will like it. I don't know. We'll have to see as more people watch this what the consensus is. As far as horror films coming up next, I think the next thing is Imaginary. So we'll see, but so far I've been a little disappointed in the 2024 releases. If there's a gem out there like on the indie scene or that's streaming on Shudder or Screenbox that I don't know about, please let me know. I really want to watch something good. And if you have seen stop motion, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.